or believing the Patriots are doing right now.
And it's tough, and it's funny because I talked about this yesterday when I talked about that Arizona game, walking off the field after the Arizona game, after this game. And I thought when I saw those guys I said, oh, wow, this is what this is like. They're going through that moment. When you just, it's not that you don't feel you can win still, but you know the kind of winning you've been doing for a while is done. That it's tougher, it's more difficult now. You're not going to dominate teams. You got to try to get in and sneak out and squeak out wins, and that's where I believe they are right now. But I thought it was interesting listening to all the guys talk. They were talking like that was the end last night after that game.
Yeah, I was in San Francisco at the end of Steve Young's career, and then Jerry Rice just after that. And heck, we had 10 plus wins, 16 years in a row. That was a record at the time until the Pats beat it last year. And then Steve Young gets hurt in the Arizona game. Aeneas Williams comes on the blitz, boom, with a concussion. He's done. He's done. Not only do you lose your quarterback, you lose your mojo. And then all of a sudden you've got to go on, and then we run into this buzzsaw called the Rams and this guy right here, and now they had the quarterback. And it took a while for that team to get its confidence back because hope, Mike, determines your effort, right? And so, and not having your trigger man, sometimes your team goes in the tank a little bit. And Jeff Garcia eventually got some of that back. But then Kurt Warner in your greatest show took it over.
Yeah, and the toughest thing for me was that it wasn't necessarily father time. It was just that they broke things up. But what I'll say about the end of a dynasty or the end of a period is that when you get a chance to actually reflect on it, you realize how special that time was. Right. Because you kind of think when you're going through it, like, oh, it's always like this. This is what it's like in the NFL. And you're always going to feel the same way no matter where you go. And then you leave and you go somewhere else, or you find yourself in a different place and you go, oh, wait a second. That's not normal. Right. That is different what we were doing and what we went through. And, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, I mean, that's even more different. I mean, what they did, I don't know. We're never going to see that again. Never going to see that in our game again. Maybe in any game, any professional sport, you're never going to see that level again. And so as it starts to come to an end, I think the biggest thing is you appreciate what you were able to be a part of. I know I did with the Greatest Show on Turf. I continue to think back to that as we go through this period. I know you did, and I'm sure Tom Brady and Bill Belichick will at some point.
How successful you were during that period, even now, even when I have dinner or sitting around with Troy, we always talk about we should have won 5 or we should have won 6. You can't go back to it. And I tell young kids now, squeeze this moment, man. Squeeze it. And I remember people telling me that, and you didn't. But I'm telling you, squeeze this moment because when it's gone, it's gone.
What do you do to the moment?
Squeeze it. Take it. Make the most out of it.
It's like squeeze.
Well,
and get everything out.
Here's what you look, because I hear what you guys are saying. After so many years of talking it, then you finally walk it. And then you don't win, it's very difficult. So what you have to do is just stay at it and create your own dynasty again. Like, say, when you win the picks contest the first year you're in it, and then 2 years later win it again.
That's not a dynasty.
I mean, I'm just talking from personal experience. Steve, why'd you take it away?
Well, Rich, Saints wide receiver, the All-Pro Michael Thomas should factor into this game, but his head coach Sean Payton said his old coaching colleague and Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer will definitely try to come up with some creative ways to try to take Thomas out of the game. So how do the Saints counter? Well, Payton said this week the receiver opposite of Thomas, the ex-receiver, usually can take advantage, and lately that's been tight end Jared Cook. 5 touchdowns over the past 4 games, but don't forget about Ted Ginn, Taysom Hill, and running back Alvin Kamara. Also, don't be surprised if you see Thomas lining up in the slot some with the Vikings down their top 2 nickel defenders. Now, for more on the Vikings, let's send it to Tom Pelissero.
Steve, for 2 years now, Vikings players have heard all about Kirk Cousins' record in big games. Tight end Kyle Rudolph told me, I almost feel bad for him because there's 10 other guys on the field. This is not a pitcher in the World Series. This is not a goalie in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Rudolph said. He's a quarterback. Can he make people around him better? Yes, but we need to play well so this whole storyline can be gone. Teammates point to Cousins' play in primetime road games at Dallas and at Seattle as evidence that the big stage does not faze him. But as Cousins goes into this game today, if he wants to shed the label, getting his first playoff win certainly would help. Rudolph added with a straight face, it's not on Monday night, so we're good. Let's go outside to Kay Adams.
I
Thank you so
respect
much.
it.
Yeah, it's certainly not Monday night, but the crowd is hostile, vicious. They want to win. This is a fan base that thinks that they should have been there last year and the year before. Kirk Cousins, some of those numbers Tom Pelissero is referring to, 7 and 16 in playoff and or primetime situations. Let's talk about how this upset can happen. A lot of pressure on the Vikings. Zimmer, 1 and 2 in the playoffs. How can Kirk Cousins and this Vikings team upset this Saints squad today?
Well, I don't know if you guys know this. I'm a history major, and the history of the Vikings state, whenever they went to battle, they would burn their boats because they had to. The only way to get back home is they had to take the other people they were battling's boats. So I say that with saying turnovers and takeaways are the most important thing for the Minnesota Vikings. When you played the Packers in Week 16, that defense had 3 turnovers in the first half, and yet you only had 10 points. That is not going to work, or 13 points. That is not going to work. So in this situation, when you get at least 2 turnovers today, you have to get 2 turnovers, then you have to score touchdowns off those turnovers and try to stretch this game out and turn this into a one-dimensional game.
The Saints on the other side have 8 giveaways all season, an NFL record low.
Like
I love this. I really, I'm just sitting on that, and I have to quote one of my Thursday night co-workers, Joe Thomas. No risk it, no biscuit.
Ooh.
So what are you saying? The play action has to be there. They have to lean on running the ball effectively, having a method to the madness. And so by saying all of that, burning the boat, saying that we're all in.
All in.
We're not going to play conservative. We're not going to try to figure it out. What we're going to do is put all of our chips on the table and say we're all in for this game, and then do it all again next week. This is a journey. Legends are born not in the regular season,
right,
but in January and February. Just like what we experienced of a legendary going down win in January in Foxborough last night. For Kirk Cousins to be who he needs to be, let's put aside his record because when he was in Washington. What is Washington doing? Hell, they don't even know what holiday it is, right?
Right.
So let's just go ahead and say they have to risk it to get all the biscuit and the syrup on that biscuit.
And they do have some healthy pieces back. Of course, Dalvin Cook, we haven't seen him since December 15th. He will suit up. He's had some rest. Also, Adam Thielen, who missed 6 games, is back for them. He can be a huge X factor today. More from New Orleans in a bit, but
burn the boats.
Ian Rappaport, if I got $1 for every time I've asked you to update me on the status of the Dallas head coaching situation, I could buy beignets and po' boys for everybody behind me. What's going on?
I hope you actually do that anyway, just for their sake, Kay. But as far as the Cowboys, here's what we know. Jason Garrett is still the coach. He is still under contract until January 14th. That has not changed. Meanwhile, they have actually begun a coaching search earlier in this week. They interviewed former Bengals coach Marvin Lewis, a former head coach, and that is the direction it seems they are going, because they also interviewed yesterday former Packers coach Mike McCarthy. And, of course, we spent so much time in the media discussing the McCarthy-Aaron Rodgers relationship over the last couple of years. But think about the job that McCarthy did in creating Aaron Rodgers. His work with the quarterback and in offense in general is something the Cowboys may be looking toward with Dak Prescott, and he certainly made good use of the off year for him. So now those are in the books. From what I understand, expect him to at least take the temperature of Oklahoma coach Lincoln Riley, see if he is actually interested in coming to the NFL. I've talked to people close to him. They don't think so, but Noah and Rich has said definitively no.
Okay, there you go. While the Cowboys